What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what's being called an unprecedented deal between Canada and Europe. So, I don't really know exactly what's going on right now between Canada and Europe, but what's clear to me is that Canada is starting to move on without the United States. I mean, let's be real. The Canadian Prime Minister has openly stated that Canada wants to distance itself from the United States, which I understand. But, at the same time, as an American, that pains me. So today, I really want to learn more about this recent Canada Europe deal and what exactly it means. So let's take a look.
Behind closed doors in Brussels and in sealed folders in Ottawa, a decision formed that would rewrite Canada's role in global security.
Huh?
And when it finally came to light, the scale was staggering. Canada had been invited into SAFE, Europe's newest multi-hundred billion euro defense alliance. A club no non-EU nation has ever been allowed to enter. That
What?
alone would have been stunning. But the shock
What? What? What's all this? What? Safe is some kind of European defense thing? I don't really know much about that, but it sounds pretty substantial, especially since they just said no non-European country has ever been allowed into this. So, I mean, just at face value, this is pretty freaking significant because for a long time, the relationship between Canada and the United States, a big part of our relationship together has been that of defense and defense coordination, and this is basically news that Canada is, taking that kind of relationship elsewhere to Europe rather than like with the US and having to rely on us for anything. So that's what I'm getting out of this, but let's hear more about this.
grew tenfold when something else became clear.
What?
Canada is the only non-European country that Europe allowed in, not the United Kingdom, with all its historic ties to the continent. Not
wow.
Australia, the EU's closest Pacific partner.
Wait a minute. Isn't the UK in Europe? What do you mean? What do you mean? Anyway, whatever. Let's not get bogged down in the details, but you'd think some like people in the UK would take some slight offense or something to be like, yeah, non-European countries like Canada, Australia, and the UK. It's like, wait a minute. I thought that was in Europe. Anyway, whatever.
Not even the United States, Europe's longest strategic ally. None of them made the cut. Canada did. This wasn't a trade deal. It wasn't a symbolic act of friendship. It was a fundamental reorientation of how Europe intends to defend itself. And Canada is suddenly woven into the center of that strategy.
Very interesting stuff so far. And yes, it is extremely significant that Canada is the one non-European country that's been let in to the club. Certainly, the United States, and I think especially like Donald Trump, the president, really does not like to be excluded from stuff. I know that's kind of like a very egotistical, almost like overgeneralization, but let's be honest. Like the United States as a country, we have an ego, to say the least. And yeah, the fact that a lot of other countries around the world now, including Europe and Canada, and are doing all these defense pacts and things, while not including the U.S. I think that irks a lot of Americans and certainly irks Trump. And yeah, I absolutely think that.
SAFE doesn't just open the door to selling equipment. It places Canada directly inside Europe's long-term procurement plans, intelligence sharing, and defense coordination systems.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I just want to. They are starting to finally explain, like, what the heck this is, this safe, this deal, what everyone gets out of it, what Canada gets out of it, and because at the end of the day, we're talking about defense, so it's kind of interesting to think about like the defense of Europe and what Canada is going to be able to offer, not in terms of like military power, but geographically speaking, you know? Like the US and Canada were not like as close to Europe as say European countries, you know? Um and likewise, like what does Europe have going to offer Canada? I'm really, really interested to like understand what that is.
SAFE doesn't just open the door to selling equipment. It places Canada directly inside Europe's long-term procurement plans, intelligence sharing, and defense coordination systems.
Okay. Intelligence is always good. Getting information, extra info. This is extra information that Canada is going to be privy to that the US is not. That's very significant. They sort of mentioned like defense deals, which isn't what exactly I was thinking about, but makes, you know, that is a thing. That is like an important thing. Countries like that manufacture military equipment and getting those types of deals, and it's a lot of money, and that's kind of boring, but
It gives Canadian companies access to a market that's already worth more than 150 billion euros and is projected to explode past 1.3 trillion euros in the coming decade as Europe rearms, retools, and fortifies itself against a turbulent world.
Sure.
The seeds of this decision were planted months earlier, long before the public had any idea anything was in motion. Canadian officials entered negotiations so quietly that even many government insiders only heard whispers.
Wow.
SAFE, short for Security and Defense Action for Europe, is the EU's answer to a rapidly shifting global landscape.
yeah, and let's also be clear, like Europe also, just like Canada, doesn't want to have to rely on the United States for stuff anymore. Certainly not defense stuff, and yeah. So I don't know. It just feels like the United States, we really, really pride ourselves on military and military technology and manufacturing and selling our missiles and our jets and things. And we take a lot of pride in that. And that's a really important industry in the US. And it just feels like Canada and Europe are just kind of starting to do your own thing, which is not good for us.
With Russia pushing aggression to levels not seen in decades, war reshaping Europe's borders, Middle Eastern instability sending ripples across global routes, and
Sure.
long-standing alliances being questioned, Europe realized it needed a new kind of security flexibility.
Okay.
Something durable, something that didn't depend on the political mood of Washington, or the internal arguments of NATO, or the economic pressures of any single nation.
I see.
Europe needed suppliers it could trust for decades, not just election cycles, and in the end, it chose Canada. Quiet, stable, often underestimated,
Wow.
but reliable. Most Canadians did
And you can't. And it feels like, especially now in this day and age, you can't put a price on trust, reliability, dependability. That is at a premium. You know, having allies and relationships that you can trust, especially, I'm guessing for Canada, that was just, you know, basically stabbed in the back by the United States. So, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense starting and building these relationships with Europe. It's just, I can't say it any other way. Like, just what keeps coming back to me is like, this is not a good sign for the United States, which really affects me.
didn't learn the details until recently, when Ottawa finally confirmed the negotiations had concluded. SAFE membership wasn't theoretical anymore. It was real. And the announcement came with a list of capabilities that Canada can now supply directly to Europe.
Oh, wow.
Ammunition, drones, armored vehicles,
Oh.
infantry weapons, advanced guidance systems, missile components, artillery platforms,
What?
sensors, robotics, aerospace technologies, the full spectrum of modern military hardware.
What? Okay, I had no idea Canada was doing all this. Look, they even got the robots like horses with guns on their head. You see that? It's like a robot dog. And but instead of like a cuddly cute face, it has like an assault rifle on its head. Um, are you guys doing that? What's Canada getting up to? Anyway, joking aside, I didn't know Canada manufactured all this different stuff and is obviously going to be having extremely lucrative trade deals with European countries now. Going, I didn't know any of this was going on.
Robotics, aerospace technologies, the full spectrum of modern military hardware. For Canadian industries, this isn't just another export channel. This is an open door into one of the world's largest purchasing pools.
Oh,
Companies that
wow.
previously had to compete with bureaucratic walls or political restrictions can now bid on major European contracts.
Oh, I thought the whole military equipment trade aspect of this was going to be kind of boring. Maybe that's one of the main like benefits of this for Canada. This might be a lot more money than I realized. Maybe the trade, selling and being able to sell and purchase military equipment with all these new relationships and deals, and maybe it's much more significant amount of money than I even realized.
Defense firms in Quebec, steel manufacturers in Hamilton, robotics startups in Waterloo, aerospace engineers in Winnipeg. All of them suddenly have access to contracts they were previously shut out of. But as always
Oh,
happens when opportunity arrives quickly, the questions came with it.
I see.
Reporters pressed the government. What is Canada paying to join SAFE? What's the entrance fee? How big is the bill taxpayers will eventually see? Is it hundreds of millions? Billions? And every time the
Yeah, what'd you have to do? What'd you how'd you get into this? What was the initiation? Did you I'm, I'm trying to think of some of the weird stuff that you have to do to get into like different fraternities in the United States and like stand outside in the winter and like try to melt a block of ice with your naked body or something. Like you didn't have to do all that.
question was thrown at them, Canadian officials dodged. The line was always the same. Negotiations are ongoing and details will be released in due course. That ambiguity fueled speculation, especially when leaks emerged suggesting the United Kingdom had abandoned its own bid after being told the entrance fee would be close to £6 billion. If that's
My
true,
God.
why was Canada allowed in? Why did Europe open the door to Ottawa so easily while slamming it in London's face?
The UK is not part of this safe military defense pact, but Canada is. Wow.
The answer seems to come down to trust, a word used quietly by European negotiators but carrying enormous weight. Canada
Yeah.
has something few countries can claim in this volatile era, a reputation for political stability.
Absolutely. That's something that I noticed as well. Like how freaking important your reputation is as a country, as being reliable. And I don't know any country that's. I couldn't name one country that I know of that's really tarnished and ruined their reputation recently with tariffs and trade wars and weird cats and dogs and no, nothing comes to mind really.
Not perfection, but predictability. Europe knows what it gets with Canada. Elections change governments, yes, but they don't usually throw the country into radical shifts or unpredictable foreign policy swings. Canada is steady, and steady is currency. There's also something else
Yeah.
at play. Canadian defense companies have been quietly punching above their weight for years.
I'm just thinking more about what they're saying here, and it's so interesting and actually really cool to learn about. Canada has a reputation as being like a little low key, but extremely steady, reliable, ethical, with a lot of valuable resources in Canada, from what I understand, and all this military stuff I didn't even know about. And I'm finally starting to understand how valuable it is to not be, you don't have to be a country that's so loud and bombastic and over the top, but instead how much value there is in being very reliable. and how many doors that opens. It's makes so much sense now that I'm kind of thinking about it.
The world pays attention to American giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, but Canada has built a surprising and respected niche. From advanced drones to precision munitions to specialized radar systems, high-grade steel, armored vehicles, and some of the most sophisticated battlefield sensors on the market.
I had no idea that Canada had developed all this. That's amazing. I think most Americans don't know about this.
Europe needed that innovation. It needed diversification. And it needed partners who wouldn't suddenly weaponize trade or impose export restrictions based on whichever party won the next election.
Yeah.
Canada fit the bill.
Yeah.
The implications for Canadian industry are enormous. Analysts are already calling SAFE the biggest defense opportunity Canada has ever had.
Wow.
Plants that once operated at modest capacity could soon be producing at levels not seen in decades. Private investment, long hesitant to enter Canada's tightly regulated defense sector, is now pouring in.
Yeah, when I heard about like the title of this video, it's just like, breaking news, Canada signed a deal with Europe, and I didn't know it was about like military and defense. I had no idea.
Companies that struggle to scale suddenly see a trillion-euro horizon in front of them. Jobs will boom. Engineering positions, logistics, metallurgy, cybersecurity, robotics, high-tech fabrication, assembly lines for parts Canada has never produced before. Entire industries could emerge around SAFE's procurement needs. But the economic impact is only half the story.
Oh, really? Okay. Because so far we've just been talking about like the financial benefits of this, let's be honest. And it seems like a really, really smart, lucrative deal for Canada. And obviously, this is also having to do with a lot of stuff that I'm guessing Canada used to purchase a lot of this military equipment and sell to the United States. And now that that relationship has gone so south, it makes so much sense that Canada is creating this new opportunity and seizing this opportunity with Europe, much to our chagrin.
The geopolitical consequences are even larger. For decades, Canada's military and defense posture have been tied almost exclusively to the United States.
Exactly.
Washington has been the primary buyer, the main partner, and the center of Canada's security gravity.
Exactly.
SAFE doesn't break that bond, but it changes its shape. By joining Europe's defense ecosystem, Canada is no longer tethered to a single military customer.
Wow.
It now has leverage. It now has alternatives. And
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of what we get, This is bad for the US, and we did it to ourselves. Like, we had it so good. Everything was so good. And we were in such a good position with Canada, and now the trust is broken, and what do you expect? We're losing out on not just the relationship, but something that every country or businessman understands, or politician should money. Like, this is financially hurting the U.S. And no matter what your politics are or what your philosophies are, like at the end of the day, that hurting the U.S. financially is what is going to make a lot of like U.S. government and politicians like actually perk up and care.
now has influence in places where it previously only watched from the sidelines. Europe benefits too. With Canada on board, the EU has a reliable, democratic, geographically distant supplier that can't be disrupted by continental politics or sudden local pressures. That diversifies their risk. It also strengthens their long-term independence, something Europe has been seeking for years.
Wow.
This comes at a time when global power is shifting in unpredictable ways. The recent G20 summit, even without the United States formally attending, represented most of the world's population and trade. It sent a message. The world is moving in new directions, often without Washington in the driver's seat.
Okay. You probably thought the video was looping or something there. No technical difficulty. They thought it was frozen again. No. Okay. Anyway, I couldn't have said it more perfectly myself than how they stated it right there. Like, the world, Canada, Europe, and the world is moving on without the US. And I've been expecting stuff like this would happen, but actually like hearing about it literally happening now is, devastating for us. And I guarantee this is only a sign of more things to come, that like more things that are going to exclude the US, or even if it's not like totally excluding us, it's like this was an example of the US had a very premium, very privileged trade relationship with Canada, and that privilege is gone. And that's going to happen with other countries as well, and is happening.
Europe knows it, Canada knows it, and SAFE reflects that reality. For now, what's certain is this: Canada has gained something no other country outside Europe has ever received: a direct role in shaping Europe's defense future. It's a seat at a table that was previously locked. It's access to a procurement network that could define the next 50 years of military technology.
Wow.
It's leverage Canada hasn't had in generations.
Jeez.
And the most striking part? Canada didn't force its way in. It didn't beg. It didn't bargain loudly or make public demands. It was invited. That alone says more about Canada's global reputation than any speech or slogan could.
Yeah.
This deal marks a quiet but unmistakable.
No kidding. Like, don't tell me that the US betraying Canada is going to turn out like good for Canada. Like, in hindsight, Canada might look back and be like, you know what, US, thanks for showing us your true colors and basically encouraging us to form all these new global relationships. Thanks. It obviously none of this is like good what the US is doing to Canada. It's not a good thing, and it's hurting a lot of people. But I'm just saying, Canada is making moves and like actually turning this bad situation into like a positive for it.
Unmistakable turning point, not just for Canada's economy, but for its place in an increasingly unstable world. For the first time in a long time, Canada isn't simply following global shifts. It is part of shaping them. It is planting a foothold in Europe's future, economically, politically, and militarily. Whether Canadians embrace that role or debate its cost, one thing is certain: the world is changing fast. And Canada just stepped into a much bigger, more influential place within it.
Wow. No kidding. This was really interesting. Honestly, it taught me a lot about like some of the stuff that Canada's doing that I really had no idea about, especially in regards to military trade and manufacturing. And I didn't know you guys were doing all that. And the cherry on top is that a lot of this was centered around how the U.S. is now missing out on a big trade opportunity that's forming between Canada and Europe. And yeah, these are the kinds of deals that I would like to see the U.S. making, although in this example, Canada was invited to SAFE, and I don't see that really happening for the United States anytime soon. So, yeah, the damage we've done to our reputation is already starting to have all these effects, and it seems Canada is doing quite well for itself, so good for you guys, but I don't know, this certainly has me worried for the U.S., but it's good to be more educated about all this whole situation. I had no idea. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts on this unprecedented trade agreement between Canada and Europe. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian things that I've never heard about or seen before, and feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.